The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual, each second stretching longer than the one before. The room was still, the kind of stillness that blankets a place when there hasn't been a voice or a touch for days. She lay on one side of the bed, the sheets on the other side still tucked, untouched, pristine. It had been that way for a while now. The bed, once too small for tangled limbs and quiet laughter, now felt like a hollow place, a reminder of absence more than comfort. The silence didn't just live in the bedroom, it followed her, settled in the corners of the kitchen, echoed through the hallway, lingered on the couch where two people used to sit close even without speaking. Loneliness in a relationship is a strange kind of grief. It doesn't come with funeral clothes or casseroles from neighbors. It's a quiet kind, invisible to most. She moved through her days doing everything as she always had, but there was no longer someone asking about her day. No arms reaching out when she sighed too heavily or dropped her head into her hands. Conversations had dwindled into logistics: what time to pick up their son, whether the bills had been paid. No affection, no warmth, just function. She had gotten used to sleeping alone, though it wasn't sleep in the true sense. It was more like waiting for the morning with closed eyes. Nights were the hardest. That was when the mind wandered, filling the dark with what-ifs and why-nots. The space beside her, once warmed by another body, now chilled her down to the bone, as if the cold had seeped into the mattress, into her skin, into her heart. There were memories stitched into the fabric of the bedroom, laughs shared between pillows, whispers under blankets, nights they couldn't sleep because they couldn't stop talking. Now it was just a room with shadows that flickered whenever she turned away from the light. The scent of him still clung faintly to his pillow, though she tried not to breathe it in too deeply. It hurt too much, and yet she never changed the sheets. That felt like admitting something permanent. Sometimes she caught herself speaking into the silence, asking questions she knew wouldn't be answered. Her voice felt foreign in the quiet. Her heart ached not just from being alone, but from being unwanted. The absence wasn't physical, not really. It was emotional. And that kind of absence could be more suffocating than if he had packed his bags and walked out. He was there, technically, but not in the ways that mattered. Loneliness didn't just weigh on her at night. It was there in the mornings when she drank her coffee quietly at the table for two. It was there when she folded his laundry, still doing it out of habit. She wasn't alone in the world, but she felt alone in her own life. And sometimes, that was the loneliest place to be. Children have an uncanny way of sensing the things adults try so hard to hide. He was only 6, too young to understand the complexities of marriage or emotional neglect, but old enough to notice when something didn't feel right. His questions had changed lately. He used to ask about dinosaurs, or why the sky changed colors. Now he asked why Daddy didn't tuck him in anymore. Why Mommy always looked tired, even after sleeping. Why the house felt quiet in a sad way. He watched her more now, studied her in moments she thought he wasn't paying attention. When she thought she was hiding her tears by turning away, he noticed the way her shoulders trembled. When she stood by the window too long, pretending to look out, he wondered why she always seemed to be waiting for something that never came. He didn't have the words for it, but he felt it, deep in the way only children can. Raw, direct, without the filters adults use to make pain more bearable. He had started crawling into her bed more often. At first, it was because of bad dreams. Then it wasn't really about dreams at all. Sometimes he just walked in without saying anything, holding his stuffed animal tight, climbing onto the bed like it was the safest place in the world. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't need to. His presence was soft, instinctual. He would curl up beside her, one small hand resting on her arm, his breathing evening out before hers ever could. She never turned him away. Those moments, though silent, were heavy with unspoken things. The warmth of his little body beside her reminded her what love was supposed to feel like. Simple, without expectation, without demands. He didn't need explanations or apologies. He just needed her, and in a way she needed him too, more than she could admit. He once asked her if being quiet made people sad. It stunned her how direct and pure the question was. She didn't know how to answer without breaking apart. She simply hugged him tighter, pressing her cheek to his forehead, willing him not to ask again. He didn't. But the next night, and the one after, he returned to her room. When she looked at him sleeping beside her, arms stretched out, face softened in peace, she often felt her own tears slip out silently. Not from sadness, but from the bittersweet ache of knowing he sensed her suffering and that in his own small way, he was trying to fix it. His intuition was a quiet gift. He didn't know about broken promises or faded love, but he knew when his mother was hurting. And in those early hours of the morning, when the world was still and the house felt like a shell, he brought with him a kind of healing she hadn't known she needed. Just by being there, just by loving her without needing to know why. The first time he climbed into bed without saying a word, she was already awake, staring at the ceiling. She heard his small footsteps padding across the floor, the sound of his stuffed bear dragging behind him. The mattress dipped slightly as he crawled up beside her. He didn't ask why she was alone. He didn't need to. His head rested gently against her shoulder, and his fingers found hers in the dark. There was no conversation, no questions, just presence. In that moment, the silence wasn't empty. It was comforting. She wrapped an arm around him instinctively, letting her breath fall into rhythm with his. His heartbeat, soft and steady, thumped against her side like a lullaby. He didn't know what he was giving her, but it was something she hadn't felt in months. Connection. Real, raw, uncomplicated. Not something she had to beg for or explain, or hold herself together to receive. It was love given freely, without judgment or condition. In the warmth of those early morning hours, something began to thaw inside her. She had built walls so high around her pain, convinced that vulnerability was dangerous. But her son didn't need her to be strong. He only needed her to be there. And in his presence, she realized she didn't have to hold herself together all the time. She could exhale. She could simply exist, broken and all, and still be loved. There were nights when she cried quietly while he slept, the sound muffled into his small shoulder. She was careful not to wake him, but even when she thought he was deep in sleep, he would stir just enough to wrap an arm around her or mumble, "I'm here, Mama," as if his soul recognized hers was fraying. These moments became sacred. They weren't about fixing anything. They weren't grand or dramatic. They were just real. A child's arm around her waist, a soft whisper in the dark, the weight of tiny fingers brushing against her cheek. It wasn't the kind of comfort that solved problems, but it softened the edges of her pain. It reminded her she wasn't invisible, that she mattered. To someone. She began to look forward to his quiet arrivals, those simple moments when nothing had to be said. She stopped, pretending everything was fine. With him, she didn't have to pretend. And maybe that's what healed her most. Not someone trying to fix her, but someone just willing to sit beside her in the dark. He became her anchor, even without knowing it. In a home that had grown cold and quiet, his touch was the only warmth. That still felt true. When the world around her seemed distant and numb, his closeness pulled her back to herself. And in the space they shared, small, tender, and wordless, she found the kind of peace that even grown-ups forget how to look for.